Hey everybody, I just finished The Girl Who Cried Monster. This is for those of you who don't know, if it's not obvious enough, this is probably one of my favorite Goosebumps books ever. And yeah, I was really nervous kind of going into this book because I didn't know if it would hold up as good as it did as a kid. I read this when I was probably maybe 9 or 10 years old. I do have a great story for this one too. And yeah, this review might be a little long, so bear with me because a lot of nostalgia for this. I am rereading all the original books and trying to kind of compare them, what I thought about them as a kid versus an adult. And I tried to ignore nostalgia, to try to read this as its own, but this book was very hard to ignore, like the nostalgia and the comfort of reading it, because I remembered 90% of this book. A lot of the books I was trying to reread were ones that I just didn't remember a lot of. That's what kind of started me wanting to read this. But yeah, so for Valentine's Day, my girlfriend actually got me a hardcover edition of this book, and I was so happy. Thank God for her. Thank you so much if you're watching this. But yeah, I'm gonna take you back to like when I first read this book and kind of give you some nostalgia of how I was as a kid and stuff. So just kind of bear with me. I'm going to show off all my covers of this book. I do have another copy of this book somewhere, and for those of you who don't know, I did recently move, and I don't know where it's at, but it's just the newest edition of this book. I do have it. It's with the different font color or whatever, like you get at Walmart or not Walmart, Books a Million. So yeah. So when I was a kid, I collected Goosebump books. Loved collecting them, and I really wanted to own every book that I read. That was like the only way I really read them is if I owned them. My dad told me to go check them out from the library and see if I can get some books there. And I remember going, and I'm trying to. There's some things I don't remember 100%, but I do remember certain things. So I went to the library and I picked this book up. It had a front cover of a library. It had the cover here. That he's clearly in like some sort of library or book room or something. So I picked this up, and I don't remember why I wanted to read this one because the cover honestly isn't one of the best intriguing covers. I mean, it's got this guy on the front eating flies. This looks more like a Fear Street cover than a Goosebumps cover. But yeah, I decided I really wanted to read it, so I got it. And the book that I had from the library, I didn't. I don't remember exactly, but I think that it didn't have a back symbiosis on it, so I didn't know what the book was about, and I didn't know at the time that this was like a library, like on the front and back or whatever. But I knew it had something to do with like books, I believe. But yeah, so I got it, carried it home with me, and I remember asking the lady. I got this, and I think I got Attack of the Mutant at the same time. And I remember asking the librarian because I only got two, because I didn't know how fast I had to have them. Like I thought that I had to read them immediately and just return them back in, and I was nervous about that. Like, what if I didn't like this book? And I remember asking the lady like, how many books can I get? She said you can get as many as you want. And I was a weird kid. I never really went to the library. We mostly went to Goodwill and just bought books, and I owned them. So I took very good care of the book that I got from the library. So I remember opening this book up probably twice and finishing it. That's how intrigued I was. I remember reading it on my couch when I got home from school and on the school bus going to school. And that's like it. I remember opening up like probably twice and finishing the whole book. Now, as far as what I thought about the book as a kid, I absolutely loved it. I was so intrigued on what Mr. Mortman would look like on the TV show, but when I got into Goosebump books, the TV show was long and gone. It wasn't even around anymore. It was just it was like probably like 2000s. I mean, I am a 90s kid, but I got into Goosebumps a little later when I was like 12 or 10 or 11, something like that. I think I read my first one when I was like 8 or 9, but yeah. The show was long gone, and I was really excited to see what it looked like. And it wasn't till years later when I finally saw the episode. Loved it too. I did a review on the episode on my Instagram account. I don't really do reviews on that for here, but yeah, really love the book. I love the library setting, and I love the Mr. Mortman thing. And yeah, that's absolutely one of my favorites. My username on Instagram is Mr. Mortman's Library, and Like all of my handles, like on social media, has something to do with that. But yeah, what I thought about it as an adult, I'm gonna jump into this again. I tried to ignore nostalgia, but it was very hard. So yeah, and while we're talking about it, let's take a look at my Mr. Mortman figurine. There's not a lot of Mr. Mortman merchandise, but very awesome. He comes with like a little fly, a spider, and he's got another little bug in his hand. He's supposed to be eating it, I guess. But yeah, this came in these little monster bags sold in the 90s, and I actually got this a couple years ago, and I opened it. So yeah, very awesome. So yeah, the story itself follows Lucy Dark. She loves telling stories and scaring her little brother, and just making his life absolutely terrible. She tells a story about the razor. In the show, it's called the razor tooth toe biter, I think, but on in the book, it's called like a Timberland toe biter, because they live in Timberland Falls, and it's basically this monster that you can't see that comes and takes your foot off. It's actually a pretty scary story when she tells them. She tells her son or her little brother about this, and he, gets scared and freaks out, runs away, tells his mom. A little while later, she tells him about this other monster that's in a tree. Again, scares him, and that's basically the gist of this. Everybody knows Lucy loves to tell monster stories and just loves to scare her little brother, and loves to scare anyone she can, but mostly her brother, about monster stories. So she's on her way to this thing called Reading Rangers, with her with I think one of her friends is in there too, I think, but it's on summer vacation, and she signed up for this reading program where she has to read some books to kind of stay busy during the summer. And she goes to the library, so she gets her roller skates and she rolls all the way to the library. And she likes to pick out like monster books. There's this librarian that she runs into named Mr. Mortman, and he is this kind of overweight guy, really nice and timid, talks to people, but he's kind of weird. His hands are always wet. He has these like pet turtles and flies in the library, and people think it's very weird. I think the pet flies are actually supposed to be for the turtles, but the turtles he has and all that stuff. So one day she's in the library, she gets ready to leave, and she forgets her rollerblades. So she goes back, and she hears Mr. Mortman in there, and he's humming to himself and all this stuff, and he's standing over this glass jar with the flies in there, and he scoops them up and he eats them, and he turns into a monster. His head swells up, his eyes pop out. In some scenes, his tongue flickers in and out like a snake. He even does have a description of his skin color, like it turns yellow, but that's like later on. It's only I was actually kind of curious about that because on the show he's yellow. I was like, where did he get the yellow scheme from? I didn't remember him turning yellow or anything. And there's like mentioned like in one sentence that his skin was kind of yellowish. But yeah, so he's a monster. So she leaves out of there, goes to tell her parents. Of course, they don't believe her. She goes back, turns into a monster again, and that's basically what this book is. She just keeps going back and forth, him turning into a monster. She goes with a camera, tries to get a picture of him, tries to get a friend to spy on him at his house. That I totally forgot about that scene where they actually went to the house. And each time she goes to the house, or goes to the library or whatever, he eats like a different thing. Like he eats flies, he ate turtles. When he's at his house, he ends up eating like a fish. He's a fish aquarium in his house, and he pulls out like eels and fish, and I think there's a snail. He like cracks it open. It's really gross, and I totally forgot about that scene, and I forgot about the scene where Randy pretends there's a monster in the house and stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically what this book is. This book is very simple. It's basically this girl lies about monsters to scare people, and then she runs into a real monster. It's basically The Boy Who Cried Wolf, but with a monster, with a very good ending. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say much about the plot. But yeah, there's a really good scene, really good story. It's simple, nothing crazy. The When I first started reading this book, I thought the library was actually scarier than Mr. Mortman, but he does get scarier when he comes to Lucy's house, and he's very odd, just very Just very weird guy, just shows up to her house. Her parents doesn't think anything about it, which is really weird. Like, if a grown man comes to like a daughter's house, I don't think that's going to end very well. Like, this guy's like mid 30s probably, or maybe 40, you know. Yeah, but yeah, there's also a scene where she's spying on him, and Mr. Mortman knows that she spied on him, and he locks the door to the library, and she's the only one in there, and that was absolutely really terrifying. And you know, as a kid, I didn't really think about that much, but like as an adult, actually, I didn't even remember that much. But like as an adult, yeah, that's a that's a big no-no. But yeah, the Gorilla Crowd Monster, the atmosphere is perfect. I will say that. In the library is actually creepy. And one thing I wanted to mention too, this is the book that made me really want a library. But after reading it, I don't really want this library because it's described as being like moldy and drafty and you know stuff like that. And yeah, I'd love to work here. That'd be pretty fun. But as far as I know it sounds crazy, but as far as actually owning this specific library, like I wanted to as a kid, I don't want that. And I think it has a lot to do with the library that I grew up with. When I did go to that library, it was, you know, I thought about that book all the time. It was kind of creepy. But yeah, that's basically it for the Girl Who Cried Monster. There's not much more else to say. It's basically the boy who cried wolf, but with a monster. Yeah, the only complaints I had, I do think the ending was very abrupt. Like there's really no time to pace yourself for the ending. It just kind of happens. I do like it, but if you told me you didn't like the ending, I would understand. If you told me this wasn't your favorite book, I would understand. This is a classic definition of a classic Goosebumps book. Like, I can't give it anything bad because it is a classic book. Like, it's just, I can't really describe it. It's just perfect for what it is, in my opinion. As far as the rating goes, I am going to give this a 5 out of 5 stars. Um, I know some people agree with me, I know some people won't, and that's fine. I will say, I don't think this is the best original Goosebumps books. The original, this isn't the best original Goosebump book that I've read so far as an adult. But it's top three. Oh, actually, I think I only gave like 3 of 5 stars so far. But yeah, this is one of the better ones. With that being said, that means it's not my absolute favorite. Because I do think there's another book that's a little scarier than this and a little bit better. But yeah, The Girl Who Cried Monster, 5 out of 5 stars for me. I don't really know what else to say about it. I'm very thankful to read this book again as an adult and have time to read it and have time to review it. Yeah, 5 out of 5 stars for me, guys. Please let me know in the comments below, what did you think about The Girl Who Cried Monster? Is it one of your favorite books in the series? Is it not? I think that's going to be it. I don't think there's anything else I really want to talk about. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. Bye.